Born on February, Friday the 13th, some 8 decades ago in Saluda County, South Carolina, this year's South Carolina Farm Bureau Distinguished Award Recipient has worked her entire life on or around the farm. She considers her birthday to be a lucky day for her since she has been blessed with so many opportunities, friends, and family. Dorothy Mills Coleman, known to her Farm Bureau family as Dot, was born into a dairy family. Her daddy also ran a local sawmill and had other farm interests like chickens, grain, horses, and the normal country farm fare. Anyone who knows Dot knows she was on the state championship basketball team 3 years running while attending Hollywood High School in Saluda County.
Yeah, I would come home from school, change clothes, and get down there and milk my number of cows, rush back and change clothes with my basketball uniform on and something over it, and rush out to the bus pick me up. I had to do all that before the bus came by to pick me up and take me to the ball game.
The school was so small they couldn't afford a gym, so they practiced and played on an outside court.
And we could only practice during recess because nobody had cars to practice after school. And so we would practice little recess, and in the wintertime, the ground would be frozen. By the time we got out for big recess, the ground would be thawing. So we were either out there on the hard ground in the cold, or we were out there on slightly muddy ground. But yeah, I had to go back and do my work at home too.
A valuable team player and a strong work ethic are attributes Dot Coleman is known for. It probably came naturally as a dairy child, milking cows early in the morning and late in the day, then tending to the chicken houses on the weekends.
Well, every Saturday, it was my duty to clean out that brood house. And, and so, you'd have to clean out one room and then clean out the other. And when the baby chicks, you'd have to put paper down on the floor. You had to teach baby chicks how to eat and drink too.
She also helped her dad bag wheat seed. As he drove the tractor pulling the combine, she rode in the back and bagged the seed.
And my job was to bag up the grain as it was harvested. And so he had a double chute, and that meant that while this one was filling, I was putting this bag on because I had to change the leader so, and then take this one off and tie it up real quick. And so yeah, I learned I had to do anything that anybody did.
But no matter what you ask of Ms. Dot, the answer usually comes back to cows, somehow, including the scheduling of their family vacations. Also, take, for example, the story about how she and her late husband Millwood met. Seems Millwood, or Woody, tagged along with a nearby friend to the Mills farm to pick up some cows that a friend had purchased from Dot's father. It was summertime and Dot was home from Winthrop, where she studied home economics. While the friend went to collect the cows, Dot and Woody struck up a conversation. The two got along just fine, but Dot was focused on school.
I put him off, I think, a whole year. Finally, I think the next summer, he said he wants to come down. I said, okay. So he came down Sunday afternoon. Well, I didn't realize that he was planning to take me to church. And so I didn't really dress up in my, like for church, because as a home ec major and going to work in extension, I had made most of my clothes to wear for work, with extension. So I wore one of those dresses, which they were all pretty and certainly well made. But anyway, he brought me up to church. They were having revival. And so that was our very first date.
Church would play a very large part in the rest of Dot's life. She grew up a Lutheran, but saw great advantage in joining a church that was nearly 100 yards from the front door of her house.
When I joined the church, it was another couple that lived a mile up the road this way. that had been Lutherans, and they had gone to a Lutheran church in Silver Street, which is not far on that way, and they had been coming to church down here because his family had grown up in the church. But one Sunday, you know, when the Baptist called you to come up, they went up, and I thought, oh my goodness, if they're going up, I better go up too, because they're going to be baptized. So that's when I went up and joined the church with them. It's written here.
For years, Dot was the Vacation Bible School director, and just this year she retired after 20 years as church clerk. Before Dot finished Winthrop, she did her practice work in home economics in Greenwood, and was later offered a full-time job in the Anderson County Extension Office after she graduated.
I just worked with Extension about a year, and Woodward was ready to get married. He said, oh, now you've got to go. You've got to get a job. You've got to go to work because your mom and dad have paid for your education, and you owe them that. Wow. But then after I had the job, he wasn't long before he was ready to marry.
Her job as a home extension agent took her to nearby farms to work with young people involved in 4-H and with women's groups to discuss homemaking. And she appeared on television as a home economist from time to time. In addition to being very involved in 4-H work after leaving her extension job, Dot also became involved in the National Volunteer Outreach Network, state president of the Master Farm Homemaker Program, steering committee member for the first Saluda Farm City Week observance, and in many Farm Bureau activities. Her dairy connections with Mitty Parr, then the chair of the State Women's Committee, helped Dot become active in Farm Bureau work, including her work as chair of the Saluda County Women's Committee. Soon after attending a state women's conference, Dot was approached about serving as a district vice president for the Piedmont District. Dot was specifically asked what she knew about Farm Bureau.
My answer was that I knew that Farm Bureau was the voice of agriculture, and I was totally involved in agriculture. Well, by the time we got to Myrtle Beach, I found out that I was selected to replace Rosemary Jones, who was district chair at that time.
Dot makes it very clear that to have served as a county chair and district chair would have been what she calls double dipping in Farm Bureau leadership. She saw the value in allowing someone else an opportunity to hold a leadership position within the organization, so she resigned her post as county women's chair. One of Dot's longtime friends is Betty Buff. The two of them and their spouses traveled the country together, attending agricultural conferences and conventions. Even now, the two travel to Myrtle Beach together for the annual Farm Bureau meeting.
Sharing a room with Dot, I guess, during the annual meetings every December has been an ongoing thing, and we've spent a lot of time together when you share a room with someone. And so, I don't know. Well, just a couple of years ago, I remember one day I said, well, I'll go on down and bring the car around. And she said, okay. So when she finally got down, I had brought the car around to the front entrance, thinking that she was going to have the porter help her bring down her things and a few things I'd left for her. Here she came with somebody else helping her carry things down. And it turned out she had gotten things to the elevator, and this person was on the elevator, and she helped her bring it onto the car because she couldn't handle it all by herself. So anyhow, just those odd things that come along.
Ms. Dot and Mr. Woody had 5 children, which often seemed like a lot more since their home out in the country was a magnet for the city kids to come and romp around the pasture land, dirt roads, and wide open spaces. One person Dot calls her adopted son is Jackie Swindler, the police chief for the town of Newberry. Jackie is best friends with Dot's younger son, Greg.
You know, they were partners. I mean, it wasn't, probably of that generation, it wasn't as typical where the man was just the dominant, personality. And like you said, most farm wives were just, wore their little apron and kept the house clean and the fire stoked and stuff as that. I mean, she was equally involved in that farming operation. And sometimes that would be harmonious. And of course, sometimes that may butt heads because, I mean, she definitely had her opinion, strong opinion as to maybe what direction the farm ought to be going and stuff. But you always, saw them together and traveling and going to Clemson games and things such as that they, certainly got along. Having 5 children, I think, is a blessing, and they certainly saw to it that each of their children had a college education, and I think that's a great thing for, that's what parents are supposed to do, is provide them that opportunity. And they did that. They worked hard to make sure that each of them headed in the direction that they wanted to go.
In addition to the cows Dot raised, milked, classified, groomed, and showed with her kids, she also had a heart for all animals. She's been known to have countless cats on the farm, in and around the house. And then there was the time she rescued an owl.
She found a baby owl, and she took that owl in and raised it in the house and had the owl in the kitchen. And so, you go in there to be an owl sitting up on the, counter or up on the thing, and so, or in the pantry, here's something moving around. What's in the pantry? Well, I'd put the owl in there, and then she'd take the owl out, and she let it go, and of course it flew and lit up on the barn and kind of stayed close to her. I guess thought that was her mom, but I'd never seen anybody with an owl in the house, and she'd raise that owl back to help it.
Oh, and back to the cats. Ms. Dot wouldn't just have any old cat. Seems that some of the cats she had gained the interest of epidemiologists and other researchers.
She had some cats that genetically had, and I may not remember exactly what it was, but the University of Georgia wanted these cats when they were born because it had a gene that they could experiment with. It had something to do of some children's illness that maybe help cure some type of childhood illness. So they would take these cats and test them for the purposes of helping save lives of children.
Dot is deeply honored by tonight's award, with only one regret that her late husband Millwood and son David couldn't be here to celebrate with her tonight, since Farm Bureau has played such a key role in her life.
I was tickled to hear that she was going to be recognized for that, because that has been her life. I mean, it really has. Not something that just I'm a member of or I'm involved with. This is truly been her life. I mean, she's given a lot to that, and certainly deserves that recognition.
Farm Bureau is her life. Farm Bureau is her life. Anybody that has known Dot for any length of time knows that Farm Bureau is special to her, as it is to all of us, because we know what Farm Bureau does for those of us that have been on the farm or are on the farm. Farm Bureau is Dot's family. If you want a real statement about Dot, Farm Bureau is her family.
Everything I've ever done, it was volunteer work. Everything I've ever done, I've never been paid because I just loved to. I just didn't take a job after we married and had a family, and I had as much work to do here on the farm that I just didn't get out and work on my own. And so when I got involved with the state convention and went all over the country and everywhere I've been, really been, I said, that's been the best pen. That has been the very most educational, best pen position I've ever thought to have.
So as we prepare to honor her tonight, consider that Dot Coleman is a leader, a team player, and always ready, willing, and able to help.
Presentable, always ready for whatever, as far as looks goes, as far as her own personal presentation. And appreciative. She is appreciative of everything. She appreciates anything anybody does for her, I think. I know she's told me more than one time, thank you. And I don't feel like I do anything. I just do whatever, comes naturally for us together. So, but she is appreciative. She's a very appreciative person.
She'll put on a pair of rubber boots and get out knee deep in it also, but I've seen her in that. But you see her more in the setting of allowing other people to do that kind of stuff and her directing. But yeah, she's certainly been involved in the farming operation, but she likes that type of thing. But yeah, her girls were all involved in music and band, and and she was encouraged that. And of course, then like Greg and I played football, and she, knew that aspect. But she's always been involved in planning and organizing and being in charge. I'd say if you give her an assignment, it was going to be taken care of, and I know without a doubt she loves Farm Bureau and any of those types of organizations, and has been involved with everything with Farm Bureau and the Farm City Week, and goes to every conference or convention you can name. as a result of her love for that, agribusiness and being involved with farming and those associations. And of course, she has so many dear friends, and she travels with them and goes to see them and takes those trips. And of course, then we get to hear all about her travels. She tells all about who she's met and who she's been with. But as long as I can remember, she's been actively involved and a leader and in planning and organizing and making sure things were done. She's very meticulous about things such as that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the recipient of Farm Bureau's highest honor, the 2012 Distinguished Service Award Recipient, Mrs. Dot Coleman.